Severe thunderstorms, extreme heat and flooding rain. That is what is building across eastern Australia this week. If you're in Queensland or northern New South Wales, conditions are about to deteriorate significantly. Let's break down exactly what is happening and what you need to know. Right now, the weather across the country is split between two very different patterns. Up in the top end, Darwin copped 77 millimetres overnight. That is the monsoon trough doing its work. The wet season is well established across northern Australia and it is not letting up. Contrast that with what is happening across the eastern states. Brisbane hit the mid-30s this morning, already 34 degrees on the Sunshine Coast hinterland by 11 a.m. Northern New South Wales is humid and uncomfortable after yesterday afternoon's thunderstorms moved through. That warm, sticky air mass is exactly what is fueling the severe weather we are about to see. The Bureau of Meteorology has issued severe thunderstorm warnings for large parts of Queensland and New South Wales. This isn't your typical summer storm pattern. We're re-looking at a prolonged period of instability that is going to generate repeated rounds of severe weather through the week. Let me explain the meteorological setup, because understanding what is driving this helps you prepare properly. We've got a low pressure trough sitting across inland Queensland and New South Wales. That trough is acting like a focal point for storm development. On the eastern side of that trough, we've got warm, moist air flowing up from the Coral Sea. That's bringing the humidity you are feeling right now. On the western side, we've got drier air from the interior, where these two air masses meet along the trough line. That is where the storms fire up. And they not small storms. We're talking about supercells capable of producing large hail, damaging winds and heavy rainfall. The latest model data from Access, the Bureau S model, shows this pattern persisting through at least Friday. The GFS and European models are in broad agreement. There is some variation in exactly where the heaviest falls occur, but all models show the eastern states copping significant rainfall and severe weather. Upper level support is strong. The jet stream is positioned to enhance lift across the region. Wind shear is moderate to strong, which supports organised storm structures. That's the recipe for severe thunderstorms, not just garden variety afternoon storms. Now let's get specific about what this means for different areas, because the impacts vary considerably depending on where you are. Far north Queensland, you're already seeing the pattern. Mount Carbine recorded 29 degrees with 83% humidity at 10:30 this morning, with 17 millimetres of rain overnight. Between Townsville and Ingham, some areas saw 110 millimetres between 3 a.m. and 10 a.m. That is substantial rainfall in a short period. The monsoon trough is active across the top end and far north Queensland. Darwin and surrounding areas will continue to see daily thunderstorms and heavy rainfall. This is typical wet season weather, but it's worth noting that rainfall totals are running above average. If you're in these areas, you know the drill. Roads flood quickly, creek crossings become impassable, and humidity makes everything uncomfortable. For those further south in Queensland, particularly southeast Queensland, the pattern is more episodic but potentially more severe. Brisbane and the Gold Coast are in the firing line for thunderstorms every afternoon and evening this week. Yesterday, storms brought small hail to southern suburbs like Parkinson. That's a warning sign. When you're seeing hail in January, it tells you the updrafts are strong. The key concern for Brisbane is the combination of factors. Sea surface temperatures in the Coral Sea are well above average. That is pumping moisture into the atmosphere. The air is unstable, and we've got dynamic support from the upper levels. Put those together and you get the potential for severe thunderstorms with large hail, damaging wind gusts and heavy rainfall that can cause flash flooding. Timing for Brisbane. Expect storms to develop inland during the early afternoon, then track eastward toward the coast. Peak activity between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. Not every day will see severe weather, but the potential exists every afternoon through Friday. The Sunshine Coast and areas north toward Gympie and the Wide Bay face similar risks. The hinterland areas are particularly vulnerable because that is where the initial storms develop as the sea breeze pushes inland and triggers convection. Northern New South Wales is already feeling it. Humid conditions after yesterday's freight train thunderstorm, as conditions were described. That is the pattern you are going to see repeated. Morning humidity, afternoon heat building into the low to mid-30s, then explosive storm development in the late afternoon. The northern rivers, mid-north coast, and areas inland to Tamworth and Armidale are all in the risk zone. The storms that develop can be intense. We're talking about rainfall rates of 50 to 100 millimetres per hour in the heaviest cores. That causes flash flooding in urban areas and rapid rises in creeks and small rivers. One thing worth noting, The soil moisture across northern New South Wales is already high from recent rainfall. That means the ground can't absorb as much water, runoff will be faster, flooding will develop more quickly. If you in a flood-prone area, don't underestimate how rapidly conditions can change. Central Queensland needs attention as well. The trough extends inland and that's where some of the most intense storms can develop. Areas around Rockhampton, Gladstone and west toward Emerald should expect severe thunderstorms. The same threats apply: large hail, damaging winds, heavy rain. Now, let's talk about rainfall totals because this is where the models show some interesting patterns. The Access model is indicating widespread falls of 50 to 100 millimetres across eastern Queensland and northern New South Wales through Friday. Some areas could see significantly more. Where storms train over the same location, where you get multiple cells moving over the same area, totals could reach 150 to 200 millimetres. That's not necessarily a bad thing for everyone. Areas that have been dry will welcome the rain, but it becomes a problem when you get that much rain in a short period. The intensity matters as much as the total. The European model's a bit more conservative with totals, but shows the same general pattern. GFS is in between. The key takeaway: significant rainfall is coming. The uncertainty is around exactly where the heaviest falls occur. For the wet season areas in the top end and far north Queensland, this is normal. Your infrastructure is designed for it. You know how to deal with it. But for areas further south that don't see this type of rainfall as regularly, it can cause problems. Let me address the heat because that is part of this story as well. The heat across Queensland and northern New South Wales isn't breaking any records, but it's persistent and it is humid. That combination is draining. When you're re-dealing with 35 degrees and high humidity, it feels worse than 40 degrees in dry heat. Some people reckon solar activity might be extending the heat wave. That's not how meteorology works. The heat we were experiencing is driven by the air mass over the region and the position of the high pressure systems. Solar flares don't influence day-to-day weather patterns in any meaningful way. The heat will persist through the week, but it's not going to get worse. We're not looking at a heat wave that builds to 40 plus degrees. It's more about the sustained warmth and humidity making life uncomfortable, particularly when combined with the storm activity. For comparison, conditions in places like Luxor, Egypt, can hit 48 degrees Celsius in summer. That is extreme heat, but it is dry. The humidity we are dealing with across Queensland and northern New South Wales makes our lower temperatures feel just as oppressive because your body can cool itself as efficiently through sweating. Let's talk about the severe weather threats specifically because understanding what you are facing helps you prepare. Large hail is a genuine concern. When storms develop in this environment, they can produce hail up to cricket ball size or larger. That causes serious damage to vehicles, roofs, crops. If a severe thunderstorm warning is issued for your area and hail is mentioned, get your car under cover if possible. Move away from windows. Protect what you can. Damaging wind gusts are another threat. We're talking about wind gusts that can exceed 90 to 100 kilometres per hour in the strongest storms. That is enough to bring down trees and power lines, damage structures, turn outdoor furniture into projectiles. Secure loose items around your property before storms develop. Don't wait until the storm is on your doorstep. Flash flooding is perhaps the most dangerous aspect. Heavy rainfall rates can cause water to rise rapidly in low-lying areas, across roads, in creeks and drainage lines. The old SES slogan applies: if it's flooded, forget it. Never drive through floodwater. You can tell how deep it is, you can tell if the road surface is intact underneath, and it doesn't take much water to float a vehicle or sweep it off the road. For those in rural areas, think about your livestock. Make sure they have access to shelter and high ground. Check dams and watercourses for debris that might cause problems during heavy rainfall. If you've got equipment or hay stored outside, move it to covered areas or at least secure it so it doesn't get damaged or washed away. One pattern worth mentioning: the storms aren't just afternoon events. We're seeing overnight and early morning activity as well, particularly across the top end and far north Queensland. The Humpty Doo area near Darwin saw 77 millimetres overnight. That is significant rainfall while most people are asleep. If you are camping or in temporary accommodation, be aware that severe weather can develop at any time. Have a plan for where you'll go if conditions deteriorate. Caravans are particularly vulnerable in severe thunderstorms. If warnings are issued and you're in a caravan, relocate to solid shelter. The extended outlook shows this pattern continuing through the week. We're not looking at one day of severe weather then clearing. This is a multi-day event. By Friday, the trough begins to weaken and shift eastward, which should reduce the severe weather risk. But we are still 3 to 4 days out from that point. Saturday and Sunday look more settled across most areas. The trough moves offshore, the instability decreases, and we return to more typical summer weather. That doesn't mean completely dry, but the severe weather risk drops significantly. One aspect I want to emphasise: flooding. Not just flash flooding from intense rainfall, but more widespread river flooding. The catchments across northern New South Wales and southern Queensland are already wet. Additional heavy rainfall will cause rivers to rise. The Bureau will issue flood warnings if that develops, but it's worth monitoring river levels if you in areas prone to flooding. The Clarence, Richmond, Tweed and Brisbane river systems are the ones to watch. Minor to moderate flooding is possible if we get the rainfall totals the models are suggesting. Major flooding is less likely at this stage, but that could change depending on exactly where the heaviest rain falls. For areas in the bush, particularly in northern New South Wales and Queensland, water tends to sit around for extended periods after heavy rain. The ground becomes saturated, tracks turn to mud, and access becomes difficult. If you're planning to travel to remote areas, think carefully about whether it's worth the risk. Getting bogged in the middle of nowhere during a severe weather outbreak is not ideal. Let me talk about preparation, because there are practical steps you can take now that will make the next few days easier. First, charge your devices: mobile phones, tablets, torches, portable batteries. Power outages are common during severe thunderstorms. Knowing you've got charged devices means you can still get weather updates and communicate if needed. Second, clear your gutters and downpipes. Heavy rainfall will quickly overwhelm blocked gutters, which can lead to water damage inside your home. Spend an hour today clearing debris and making sure water can flow freely. Third, secure outdoor items. Furniture, trampolines, potted plants, anything that can become a projectile in strong winds needs to be tied down or moved inside. I know it's a pain, but it is easier to move things now than to replace them after the storm. Fourth, know where your emergency kit is. Torch, batteries, first aid supplies, battery-powered radio, bottled water. Basic items that you might need if power goes out or you re-isolated for a period. Fifth, if you're in a flood-prone area and severe weather is imminent, fill your bathtub with clean water. That gives you drinking water and water for flushing toilets if the supply gets cut. Simple preparation that can make a big difference. Sixth, check on your neighbours, particularly elderly people living alone. Make sure they're aware of the severe weather risk and have what they need. That S part of looking after your community. For those with livestock or property in rural areas, walk your property before storms develop. Check fences, identify potential hazards, move animals to higher ground if flooding is possible. Make sure water troughs are full in case power to pumps is lost. If you have a generator, make sure it is fueled and tested. Wait until the power goes out to discover it want to start. Run it for 10 minutes, make sure everything works, then you are ready if needed. I want to address something that came up in the discussion. This is called a wet season, and in the north, people actually appreciate having green trees and full dams. That's absolutely right. The monsoon is essential for water supply, for agriculture, for the environment across northern Australia. The severe weather warnings aren't about saying rain is bad. They're about making sure people understand the intensity and prepare appropriately. You can appreciate the rain and still take sensible precautions against the hazards that come with severe thunderstorms. The pattern we're seeing is actually fairly typical for late January across eastern Australia. We're in the peak of the wet season in the north, and we often see active storm patterns across Queensland and northern New South Wales during summer. What makes this particular setup noteworthy is the persistence and the coverage area. Let us talk about what happens after the severe weather clears. The trough moves offshore by the weekend, as I mentioned. Behind it, we get a brief period of more settled conditions. But this is summer in Australia. More storm activity will develop. This isn't the last severe weather outbreak of the season. The monsoon trough will remain active across the top end and far north Queensland. That is your climate. Daily thunderstorms, heavy rainfall, high humidity. It continues through February and into March. Some years, the wet season extends into April. For southern Queensland and northern New South Wales, the pattern becomes more variable after this system moves through. You'll still see thunderstorms, but they're less organised, less widespread. The severe weather risk decreases, but doesn't disappear entirely. One thing to watch in the extended outlook is the potential for a tropical low or tropical cyclone to develop in the Coral Sea. We're in the peak of cyclone season. Conditions are favourable for development. The models are hinting at the possibility in the 7 to 10 day time frame. It's too early to say anything definitive about that. Tropical systems are notoriously difficult to predict beyond 5 days, but it's worth keeping an eye on. If something does develop, we'll have several days warning to prepare. The Indian Ocean dipole is currently neutral. El Niño Southern Oscillation is in neutral conditions as well. That means we don't have a strong climate driver pushing the pattern one way or the other. What we're re-seeing is largely driven by local and regional factors rather than broader climate patterns. For those interested in the technical details, the Madden-Julian oscillation is in a phase that favours enhanced convection across the Australian region. That supports the active thunderstorm pattern we're experiencing. As the MJO propagates eastward over the next few weeks, that enhanced convection will shift as well. Let me circle back to the immediate concerns. Today through Friday, severe thunderstorms across eastern Queensland and northern New South Wales. Large hail, damaging winds, heavy rainfall, flash flooding, those are the primary threats. Monitor the Bureau of Meteorology website and their app for the latest warnings. When a severe thunderstorm warning is issued for your area, take it seriously. These warnings are based on radar observations and reports of what's actually happening, not just forecasts. If you are caught outside when a severe thunderstorm develops, seek shelter immediately. Don T, try to outrun the storm, find solid shelter, stay away from windows, wait for it to pass. Most severe thunderstorms move through quickly. The worst conditions typically last 15 to 30 minutes. After the storm passes, be cautious. Downed power lines can still be live. Flooded roads may have damage underneath that you can TC. Trees that were damaged might fall hours after the storm. Give emergency services time to assess and make areas safe. One final point about this week's weather. Australia Day falls right in the middle of this severe weather period. Many people have outdoor plans, barbecues, events. Keep a close eye on the forecast and the warnings. Be prepared to move celebrations indoors or postpone if severe weather develops. It's better to change plans than to put yourself and others at risk. Summer thunderstorms can be spectacular to watch from a safe location, but they are dangerous if you were exposed. The bottom line, this is a significant severe weather outbreak for Eastern Australia. It's not unprecedented, it's not the worst we have seen, but it deserves your attention and preparation. Take sensible precautions, stay informed, look after your mates and neighbours. The Bureau of Meteorology does excellent work keeping people informed. Their warnings are based on solid science and real-time observations. When they say severe weather is coming, believe them and act accordingly. For those who've lived through major events like the 1999 Sydney hailstorm or significant flooding events, you know what severe weather can do. Use that experience to prepare appropriately. For those who haven't experienced severe thunderstorms before, listen to those who have. This weather pattern will pass. By the weekend, conditions improve. We get back to more typical summer weather. But between now and then, stay alert, stay safe, and look after each other. That's the situation across Eastern Australia for the week ahead. Severe thunderstorms, heavy rainfall, potential flooding. The meteorology is clear. The risks are well understood. And the Bureau's warnings will keep you informed as the situation develops. Check the Bureau of Meteorology for updates throughout the day. Conditions can change rapidly with severe thunderstorms. What looks clear at midday can deteriorate by mid-afternoon. Stay informed, stay prepared.